Well, much as we've loved talking about the Super Bowl champion Eagles the last couple of weeks, it's pretty cool now to also be talking Philadelphia Phillies baseball again. We have full squad workouts underway. There's a spring training game already this weekend, a couple of them, in fact, and there is plenty to discuss. Let's do all that with MLB.com Phillies beat writer Todd Zolecki. Hey, Todd, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. I know you are down in Clearwater, and before we talk baseball, how is that area doing now in the wake of the catastrophic hurricanes that hit the region last fall? I know they've spent millions of dollars in recovery efforts.
Yeah, so I'm actually staying down near the beach, like right off, like a block off the beach. And other than a few things, like right now, for instance, Gulf to Bay Boulevard, almost before you get to the roundabout at Clearwater Beach, it's down to one lane, but I'm told they're going to have that resolved in the next week or two. Maybe a store or two in the touristy area, like the Clearwater Beach area, is still boarded up, but almost everything is back. Palm Pavilion has been a Philly fan popular hangout for decades.
Love that place.
Yeah, that place was washed away, but I believe if they have not reopened yet, they're reopening soon. Clear Sky Cafes are another great eatery down there on the beach. They just reopened recently, and a lot of my other favorite spots down there have reopened. So, I think as you go north along the beach and into some residential neighborhoods, you'll see some places still beaten up and not recovered. But for Phillies fans' purposes, the ballpark is looking great, and the Clearwater Beach area, where everybody's going to be walking around in a few weeks, or as early as Sunday, is going to be. It looks great. It really does.
That's great to hear. Well, my leadoff baseball question concerns the leadoff hitter. We've gotten confirmation, I guess, from Rob Thompson that he is going to fiddle with the lineup quite a bit this spring and may well end up not having Kyle Schwarber at the top of the order. Do you think we will see a new lineup when the games begin to count? And what will the first 4 or 5 spots in the order likely be?
I really do think where there's smoke, there's fire. And, man, there is a lot of smoke in terms of the new lineup. And it really has started since, they got bounced by the Mets and the NLDS. Rob Thompson first mentioned the possibility of looking at a new lineup. And he said a lot of things, which, again, he hasn't come out and said this is happening, but he's dropped some serious hints at it. He has said that I'm seriously considering moving Kyle Schwarber out of the leadoff spot. When we've asked him, who do you see hitting there? He goes, Trea Turner. He didn't say Bryson Stott. He didn't say Bryce Harper. He didn't say anybody else. He said, Trea Turner would be my leadoff hitter.
I saw this on a fan site today. How's that look right there?
That actually might, I don't know who put that out there, but that's a lineup I have also put out there on MLB.com. So that's basically the lineup. So Rob has said, for instance, I see Trea, if I'm going to move Schwarber out of the leadoff spot, I see Trea Turner as the guy. He has said Kyle Schwarber will not hit lower than 4th. And he has also said, I do want to split up Harper and Schwarber. So if you take all of those things at face value, you put all the puzzle pieces together, it goes, okay, well, if you got to split up Harper and Schwarber, that means Alec Bohm is probably going to hit between them. If Schwarber's not going to hit lower than 4th, boom, there you go. You're going to hit 4th. Now that means Bryce Harper is going to hit 2nd. He has said Bryce Harper will not hit leadoff, and I don't think Bryce wants to hit leadoff either, but I think Rob Thompson likes Trea Turner in that number 1 spot. So I think that's a good way to go. I think to start the season, Nick Castellanos is a guy that, a lot of the game is feel and whatnot. And I think he would like to hit 5th to start the season as high as he can in the lineup. So I think somebody like Nick would hit 5th, and then you kind of go down the line there. Bryson Stott, if he's healthy, is a good guy and he bounces back, he could hit 6th and so on and so forth.
Hey, how is Alec Bohm doing mentally after an offseason of trade speculation?
Yeah, we talked to him the other day, and he seemed to be in the right frame of mind, and that was something that myself and I'm sure, a lot of people were wondering, I wonder how he's going to come into camp. Is he going to be upset and express that disappointment of being in trade rumors and the Phillies trying to trade him? He says, no, I didn't really pay too much attention to it, although I was asked about it constantly. By all accounts, he's coming to camp with an upbeat attitude. He's been very positive, according to Rob Thompson and the coaching staff that's been working with him, the infield coaches and whatnot. And I think for Alec Bohm, it probably doesn't feel great to know that the Phillies were making calls. Now, the Phillies will say that they weren't making calls. I think they were making calls, and I think teams were calling about them. They just couldn't strike a deal. It's not like they were desperate to move him or anything like that, but as they looked to improve the team, they said, well, all right, an all-star third baseman, 2 years of team control. If we're going to make a trade and maybe get some value in return, that's probably the guy we would have to trade. And so that's why he was in those trade rumors. But he seems to be in good spirits. And I think he's maybe coming in more motivated, like, hey, all right, you wanted to trade me? Maybe I'll put up a couple monster years. And, maybe in 2 years when I become a free agent, Phillies fans will be going, oh my gosh, you can't lose Alec Boehm. He's a superstar. So, I think there's maybe some motivation for him to do that.
Well, the Phillies added Max Kepler in the offseason. Will he be in the outfield every day, do you think? And what's the outfield going to look like for the most part with him joining returnees Nick Castellanos, Brandon Marsh, and Johan Rojas?
Yeah, the plan for right now is for Max Kepler to be the everyday left fielder. Now, that's going to be interesting because for a few reasons. Number one is he's been injured a lot throughout his career. I don't think he's had more than 492 plate appearances in a season since like 2019 because he's been on that injured list a lot. So that's one thing. Can he actually stay healthy to be an everyday player? That remains to be seen. He had a core surgery in Philly actually in October, an injury that bothered him all last year in his last season with the Twins. And a couple other things is that can he hit left-handed pitching? He's hit left-handed pitching at times, but if you look at his splits, there's a pretty big difference, righties versus lefties. So can he hit lefties? If he can, then he'll be the everyday left fielder. If not, then you might see some Weston Wilson in left field. But he is coming off a down year. He's coming off an injury-plagued year, so he's got a lot to prove, which is why he signed just a 1-year, $10 million contract. In terms of the rest of the outfield, Nick Castellanos is the guy in right. And in center, I think the Phillies would like to see if Brandon Marsh can play every day. Same thing with Kepler, though, right? Can he hit left-handed pitching? If not, I think you could see some Johan Rojas in there. You might see Johan Rojas in there anyway, depending on how well he plays this spring. He had a pretty good winter ball season in the Dominican, so maybe that's a sign of incremental improvements that could make Rob Thompson and the Phillies staff feel more comfortable playing him a little bit more regularly.
And Edmundo Sosa apparently going to get some work in the outfield this spring.
Yeah, I forgot about it. It's funny. I still haven't wrapped my head around Edmundo Sosa. But yeah, the Phillies. So, and it's probably because the past 2 years, the Phillies have said in spring and even during the season, I think we're going to get Edmundo some looks in the outfield. We want to see if he can play some outfield. He's a right-handed bat. We can get him a little bit more work. We can keep his bat sharp. And it just hasn't happened. So, I actually asked Rob Thompson, I said, well, you've kind of said this the past couple of years that you're going to play Sosa, and it just never happened. He's like, this is where we're going to try to force the issue. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, early on in camp, he has been, working out at times in the outfield. So I think they're going to give it a shot. They think he might be able to play some center field. Now, that would be interesting because if they think he can play center field on occasion, they could option Johan Rojas. That would allow them to maybe keep another bat, like a Cody Clemens. They would kind of allow them to shake up their bench a little bit if they wanted to go that way.
Well, we know Bryce Harper is a pretty good cook and now a TikTok star. Yeah. What kind of a season do you expect from the first baseman?
Yeah, I think Bryce is a future Hall of Famer. I think he is motivated always to have big years, and I see this as no different. I think he's never said this to me, and he might have said it to others. Maybe I just forgot, but I think he comes in every season going, I think I can win an MVP this year. He's that type of player. He just needs to stay on the field and not kind of go through some cold streaks. He had a little bit of an elbow issue last season that caused some problems for him at times, but he's healthy right now. And if he's healthy, he's 30 home runs, he's 100 RBIs, he's a 350 at minimum on base guy. I'm probably underselling him quite a bit there. He's a 400 on base guy. That was one thing he said the other day. He's like, I want to get on base more than I did last year. I think his on base percentage was around 387, something like that. He wants to have a higher OPS, which of course is a slugging percentage and on base percentage combined. So I always expect elite level play from Bryce Harper. I still think he's one of the best players in the game.
I talked with our friend Jason Stark last week, and he believes the Phillies will again be a serious contender, thanks largely to these 5 guys, the starting rotation. How good is this group of starters, and what is the plan also for Andrew Painter?
I think this could be one of the best rotations in baseball, if not the best. Of course, the Dodgers will probably have something to say about that. They think that they have a strong rotation, and they do. But I think it's funny. A lot of people have said to me this winter, man, the Phillies didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. They kind of stood pat. Max Kepler coming off an injury. Jordan Romano coming off an injury. Joe Ross, he's kind of a swing guy in the bullpen. He could be pretty good. But really, what did they do? Well, Jesus Luzardo, I think, is an under-the-radar big move for the Philadelphia Phillies. You talk to the players in this clubhouse who have faced him, they're like, wow, we're lucky to have him. And I think a lot of people in baseball know that Jesus Luzardo, when he is healthy, is a legit, at minimum, middle of the rotation guy. I mean, he was really, really good for the Marlins a couple of years ago. He started game 1 of the wild card series against the Phillies at Citizens Bank Park. So he can be really good. So you have Wheeler. He could win a Cy Young. He's finished second twice in the last 4 years. You have Aaron Nola, who's been a top 5 Cy Young finisher. He's an innings eater. He's got, I think, the most innings in baseball of any pitcher since like 2019. You have Ranger Suarez, who's going to be super motivated to have a big year because he will be a free agent after the season. He's got a new agent, Scott Boras. And Scott Boras lands big deals. And I think was probably in Rangers' mind in terms of switching over to Scott Boras. He's like, I want to position myself to get the best deal possible. And I'm sure Scott and his team, and of course the Phillies training staff and everybody there wants to have a big year. So you have Ranger, the first 3 months of the season was one of the best pitchers in baseball. And they think he can carry that through the entire season. If he does, he's going to be very rich. And of course, Christopher Sanchez, of course, all-star starter last year. He's added on some weight, some muscle. And so you have 5 guys there that could all make an all-star team. And then you have Andrew Painter, who you mentioned. He threw a bullpen today. One cool scene, one cool moment is that afterwards he was talking with Cole Hamels, and Cole was showing him the grip of his changeup. And they were talking pitches and pitch selection and just, growth and development and whatnot. Painter could be up with the Phillies sometime this summer. Depends on how he's feeling. Depends on how he's throwing, of course. It's not like he's definitely coming up in July. I mean, if he's struggling for some reason, I guess they could push him back. But it is funny. Nobody thinks this guy is going to struggle. Everybody thinks he's going to be healthy, and everybody thinks he's going to be up at some point this season. It could be June. It could be August. I think obviously the later he comes up, the better in a sense, because that means the other 5 guys are throwing the ball really well, and he'll have more bullets late in the season and into the postseason. And if he lives up to the hype, you're going to want him pitching for you in October in some way, shape, or form.
Going to be a fun season with 3 of the 5 best teams in Major League Baseball, perhaps in the National League East. So that's going to be fun to watch. Yeah. Todd, you are a busy guy. Tell our viewers and listeners where they can find your written work and the great Phillies Show podcast that you do with Jim Salisbury and Ruben Amaro Jr. Yeah, so
I all my stuff is at MLB.com, at Phillies.com. I have a Phillies Beat newsletter that comes out twice a week, which is
I get it.
Yeah. It's a lot of people really like getting the newsletter. It's kind of funny. You start those things, you go, I wonder how people are going to like this. But I get a lot of people that talk about getting the newsletter delivered to their inbox twice every week. And then, of course, as you mentioned, the Phillies Show with Ruben Amaro Jr., Jim Salisbury, myself. It's a Phillies podcast. You can find it, obviously wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube, and we've had a lot of great guests over the year so far. Bryce Harper, Chase Utley. We had just recently, we had JT Realmuto, Rob Thompson. We had Caleb Cotham, the pitching coach, and hopefully we'll have more guests to come throughout the year. So it's been a lot of fun talking baseball with Ruben and Jim. They're 2 of the best, absolute best.
Yeah. Follow this guy also on X, the former Twitter, at Todd Zolecki. Nice and simple. Todd, this was a blast, as I knew it would be. Thanks for joining me on Philly Pressbox Radio, and I'll look for you when I'm in Clearwater next month.
All right, yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing it down here. It is 71 degrees right now. I don't, so it's nice. It's nice today.
Yeah, it's about 22 up here.
I've heard without the wind chill. Exactly.
All right. Thank you, Todd.
Thanks.